Who's actually going to get the most out of a Proxxon 34104mm drill head for their PD250E lathe? Who should walk away and leave the upgrade on the shelf? And, for the everyday hobbyist who just wants a reliable way to turn a small lathe into a miniature machining center, does the price make sense? Those are the 3 questions I'm going to wrestle with today because I've spent the last week digging through forums, watching a handful of build videos, and talking to a few owners who have already slipped this head onto their bench. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's talk about the problem most of us face when we first think about adding a milling head to a small lathe. You have a PD250EA solid, German-engineered lathe that's great for turning small parts, but it's missing that sideways movement you need for light milling, drilling, or even a bit of light engraving. The temptation is to buy a full-size CNC mill, but that's a massive price jump and a lot of space you probably don't have. The Proxxon 34104 promises to turn your lathe into a modest machining center for a fraction of the cost, but the devil is in the details. Does it actually hold up when you start feeding metal through it, and will the column be stable enough for anything beyond hobbygrade tolerance? First off, the conversion concept is straightforward. The head slides onto the existing tailstock of the PD250E and replaces the standard chuck with a 13/8 inch, approximately 35 mm, column that extends about 15 inches 400 mm up the lathe's bed. In practice, that means you can set up a workpiece on the lathe spindle, lock it in place, and then use the mill head to feed a cutter into the workpiece from the side. For people who spend a lot of time making small brass fittings, model engine parts, or hobby-scale gear sets, that versatility is a real time saver. Instead of juggling 2 separate machines or trying to rig a makeshift adapter, you have a single platform that does both turning and light milling. Now, who should definitely consider this upgrade? If you already own a PD250E or another Proxxon lathe in the same family, you're already halfway home because the mounting interfaces line up perfectly. That same group includes small shop owners who spend most of their time on a 1-inch or smaller work envelope. Think of model train builders, watchmakers, or anyone who needs to make precise slots in tiny components. The mill head's column is long enough to give you decent clearance for a 6 mm end mill or a 1 mm drill, and the whole setup fits on a standard 4-foot workbench without crowding the floor. If you already have a set of Proxxon accessories like their micro drill bits, small cutting tools, or the precise digital readout you probably use for turning this head will slot right into that ecosystem without pulling in a completely new toolset. On the flip side, there are some clear reasons to skip it. First, if you're looking for anything beyond light milling, say, machining aluminum stock that's a few millimeters thick, or trying to produce a finished surface that's smoother than a standard lathe finish, this head will feel underpowered. The design is built around the PD250E's modest torque capabilities, so you'll quickly hit the motor's limit if you try to cut too deep or use a larger cutter. Second, space-constrained hobbyists who have a tiny bench might find the 15-inch column a bit intrusive. The whole unit hangs off the lathe's bed and can limit overhang on the opposite side, making it tricky to fit larger workpieces. Finally, if you're not comfortable with the idea of swapping out the lathe's tailstock when you need to switch back to pure turning, the conversion adds a few minutes of setup time each day. For someone who only needs to dip into milling once a month, the effort may outweigh the convenience. Let's talk practical strengths. The first thing I noticed in the videos I watched was how solid the column feels once it's clamped. Even though it's a fairly lightweight steel tube, the base plates lock into the lathe's bed with the same precision you'd expect from the original tailstock. That locking mechanism means the head doesn't wobble when you push the cutter in, which is crucial because even a tiny amount of chatter can ruin a small part. The 13/8 inch column size is a sweet spot. It's big enough to hold standard microdrill shank sizes, yet compact enough to keep the overall footprint reasonable. Another practical plus is the German engineering badge. Proxxon's reputation for tight tolerances means the head's spindle bearings are well aligned, so you won't spend hours trying to correct a misaligned axis the first time you start cutting. For anyone who has struggled with a DIY adapter that drifts off-center, this is a noticeable relief. Where the weaknesses show up is in the lack of any built-in feed mechanism. The head relies entirely on the lathe's existing carriage and,